Hey guys, in this video we're going to be looking into characteristics of graphs. So characteristics of graphs. So we have a graph right here, right? And we see the names domain, range, maximum, minimum, y-intercept, and finally x-intercept. So we're going to be looking into what all these terms are. So let's start with the first one, domain. So your domain is really the values, the set of x values that cover your function. So we have the x values on this line right here. So these are all your x values. And basically it is covering points from, so if this is -1, -2, -3, and then if this is 1, 2, 3, the x values that are covered in this pink function start from -3 and end at 3. So you have points all the way from -3 and points that end all the way at 3. So when you write this, you're going to say bracket -3, comma 3. We're using brackets here because they indicate that the numbers -3 and 3 are included. So brackets means included. So if we had an open circle, for instance, so let's say we had an open circle here instead of a closed circle, we would have -3, comma 3, parentheses. The parentheses means not included. Not included. Perfect. Now your range, let's move on to the range. So your range is very similar to the domain, except we're now looking at the y values. So these are our y values. So when we look at the y values, we have here 2, this is -2. So we have points all the way from -2. So we have points here. Then we have points here as well, points, points, points. And finally, we stop at -2. So, and they're closed points. So this is an actual point and this is an actual point. And it's included, right? We don't see a gap in our graph. We don't see an open circle anywhere. So we're going to say from -2 to 2. So you're probably wondering why we start off with -2 and not 2. So why did I not write it as 2, comma -2? Well, that's because we read from left to right, and we start with the smallest number and then end with the largest number. So we're moving, from bottom to up. And these points are included. So your maximum now is basically the highest point. So it is the highest point on the graph, highest point on the function. The function. So what is the highest point on the function? Well, the highest peak on the function. We're looking for the highest peak. And we see that right here. So this point right here is the highest. So, and that is 2, comma 2. We're using brackets here because we're talking about a point. So 2, so this would be here. Let me move this a little down. Perfect. So this would be 2, comma 2. So we're using parentheses because we are talking about a point. Now your minimum is the lowest point on the function. So your lowest valley. Lowest point on the function. Lowest point on the function. So, and that point is right here. So that's -2. So we have -2 right here and -2. Again, we're using parentheses because we're talking about a point. Your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is the point on the function that touches the y line. So this is the y and this is the x line. So we're looking for where the function touches the y line. So the y line extends all the way from the top to the bottom, and it touches right here at the origin. So we can say that this is 0, 0. The x-intercept is where the points or points of the parts of the function touch the x line. So this is the x line. So it touches here at -3, 0. -3, 0. We see one here at the origin. So, 0, 0. And another one here at 3, 0. So, notice that when we're talking about x-intercepts, all the y values are zeros. That's because when we have a point on the x line, your y value here is 0. Okay. And that's the same thing with the y-intercept, except it's switched because when we have a point on the y value, your x will always remain 0. Okay, let's move on to the next graph. So, which is right over here. So, our domain, again, our set of value, or basically a set value that contains all x values for the function. So when we talk about domain, so let's pick this color. It covers from here, here, and it keeps going because there's an arrow, right? So as the function grows, that's not straight. So as the function grows, we're covering more x values, right? So it can go on forever because we have an arrow right here. So when we have something like that, we're going to first start with our smallest value, which is 1, -1, -2, -3, -4. So we have -4. And we use a bracket here because there's a closed circle. And then we're going to say infinity because the points go on to infinity. And we use a parentheses whenever we have the number infinity because it's not a real number. And we don't really own infinity. It's not a point. Okay, so what about the range? When we're talking about the range, we're talking about the y's, this line right here, right? So when we look at that, we see the lowest point to be from here, -2, and it's increasing, right? As the graph grows further, the points get taller and taller and taller, like they're going to increase. So all we're going to say is we're going to look at the lowest point, that is -2. So -2, and we use a bracket because we own the points there. They're closed circles. So -2, comma, and up is infinity. It's positive. So remember, when you're going up, it's positive. When you're going right, it is positive. When you're going left, that is negative. When you're going down, that is negative. Okay, so your maximum is the highest point on the graph. So highest peak on the graph. Well, you're probably saying, well, this is the highest peak, but the point here is definitely higher than that. So we're looking for the highest peak. So maximum is when you have like a mountain. So you're looking for the highest mountain, like peak of the mountain. And that is at 0, 0. So let's switch colors, 0, 0. And we're using parentheses because they're not, we're talking about points. They are included. We're just talking about points. And they're not set values. So, okay. So minimum. We're looking for the valleys. So we have one here and one here. We have two valleys. So we can write them, we can include them both. So we can say -3, comma, and this is -2, so -2. And we can also say comma, parentheses, This is 2, so 2 comma -2. Perfect. Now, the y-intercept. Where does the graph touch the y line? So this is the y line. So it touches again over here at the origin, 0, 0. And the x-intercept, we're looking for the points that touch the x line. So the x line right here, the x line right here. And we have a point right here. I'll use a different color. So we have a point right there, right here, and right here. So that's -4, 0. And then we have 0, 0. And finally 3, 0. So notice that our y values are all zeros. So 0, 0, 0. And here the x value is 0. Okay. Going on to our last example, we have this function here. So let's try the domain. So the domain is like we've talked about, it's whatever the set of values that cover the function in terms of the x value. So all the way over here. So we have as the function grows, so it's growing, and we see that the points for the x values keep continuing in this direction. And same thing for the y values. The other side. So we have points here, and they're growing in this direction. So this way. So when we have something like this, we said that we're going to say that this side is negative, this side is positive. So this is -infinity, infinity. And we use parentheses because infinity is not a real number, and we don't really own infinity. So the range, when we're talking about in terms of this side, we see that as the graph grows, so do the y values. And as the y values, as a function goes down this way, the y values decrease as well. So all we're going to say is -infinity. So as it's going down, it's negative, so -infinity. And then as it goes up, we have positive, so it's going to be +infinity. You don't have to write the plus sign when talking about positive infinity. So that's just a thing. And then maximum and minimum. In this graph, we really don't have any maximum and minimums. And that's because we don't really have a peak, like a turning point. We need to have a specific turning point. We don't really have that. This is kind of a flat line, right? So you're probably saying, what about this point right here? Well, we have that point right here as well, like, at -1, 8. So this value right here, this is 8. So, well, this is 8 as well. This is 8, this is 8. Your maximum can only be points. So we're looking back at our definition. They have to be points. So in this case, it is not applicable. And same thing with the minimum. We don't have any values. We don't see values anywhere here. So it is not applicable. Your y-intercept, where is the function touching the y line? And that is right here at 8. So, let's use a different color. Right here at 8. So all we're going to say is 0. So our x values are always 0 when we're talking about y-intercept. 0, 8. And the x-intercept, we have a point right here. And we have another point. No, that's it. So I would say that's about -2. So we can say -2, 0. And that's it.